We welcome you all to today's webinar conducted by onlinetaxupate.com. Onlinetaxupate.com is a website which shares recent update in GST, GST Council meeting recommendation, budget updates, articles on important topic, judgment, etc. It has a note section as well, wherein GST law is presented in a simple language for professional taxpayer knowledge seeker to learn GST in a simple way. Online Tax Update also shares a newsletter in a very nominal fees. The link will be shared in the PPT or in the YouTube link. Today's webinar topic of the webinar is detention of vehicle, seizure of goods, e-way bill, etc. And our today's faculty is Mr. C.A. Vardhaman Sir. Vardhaman Sir is a associate chartered accountant. He is the founder of KVC and Associates. Prior to KVC and Associates, he had worked at one among the big four for almost 6 years in the indirect taxation division of the tax and regulatory services. At KVC and Associate, he currently leads the indirect taxation and Exim Consultancy Division, having experience in handling all kinds of indirect tax matters, focusing on GST, customs, foreign trade policies, Seizure and Exim consultancy for various multinational companies and Indian promoter groups. He has extensive expertise of advising clients on indirect taxation services such as compliance and SOP preparation, indirect tax review, credit liquidation strategy, transaction advisory services, litigation and representation services, and indirect taxation training. He has a handful of experience carrying out a feasibility study for implementation of various EXIM and FTP schemes such as EPCG, Mover, AEO, etc. for automobiles, chemical, pharmaceuticals, food processing, amongst various MNC Indian promoter group entities. Apart from this work, he is passionate about teaching and imparting his knowledge to others, and that's why he is here with us. He conduct training session and workshop on indirect taxation and areas of exam for various corporate professionals and students pursuing professional courses. His dedication to teaching and upskilling others is commendable, and he firmly believes that sharing knowledge is crucial for professional growth and success. Now, I would like to request CA Vardhaman sir to take over the session. Over to you, Vardhaman sir.
Thank you for such a lengthy introduction, sir. So I hope the audience were able to follow. Okay, so first of all, before we get into the subject matter and take this webinar more towards GST topic, I would like to thank Ganeshan sir and Online Tax Update for giving me this opportunity to discuss on the one of the hot topic of GST, and which has been faced by all the taxpayers, irrespective of their size, be it a multinational company or be it a sole proprietor having a turnover of say 5 crores or above. So, thanks Online Tax Update and Ganeshan sir, and also all the participants who are able to take time on this weekend 9:30 and being available over here to share the knowledge and their experience. So I'll just present my screen. So I hope my screen is visible, Ganeshan sir.
Yes, yes, the PPT is visible.
Super. So as said, the topic for today's webinar is detention of vehicle, seizure of goods, and e-way bill. So these terms are most generally used when goods are in movement from one place to another, and roving squad is the word which we will never like to get a call from. So with this background, let us start with, I'll just set the context how the session is going to be taken forward. First, we will give a summary of what inspection and detention is. We will also discuss on what is the process which the roving squad officer has to follow if the goods in movement are intervened by the officer. And then I have taken 4 case studies wherein we have tried to put in almost all the possible scenarios to discuss and deliberate on how we should react in the given situation. And then last session is the one where we can take up the questions and answer the practical challenges. So moving on, the inspection of goods in movement. This inspection powers have been granted to the officer through Section 68 of the CGST Act, wherein they look into the validity of movement of goods along with the documents which are associated with such movement to understand the nature of movement. And then finally is the compliance of tax framework for all such movement of goods. So assuming that our goods are in movement, and while movement at one of the checkpost, the roving squad officer intervenes our movement of goods, and he asks or the transporter or the person in charge of the conveyance to produce the documents which are to be carried while movement. After looking at those documents, if the proper officer feels it is appropriate to carry out an inspection, he shall issue a statement which shall be MOV 01. So this statement will contain the information which the transporter furnishes before the officer. Based on this statement, an inspection order will be issued by the proper officer to inspect the goods, vehicle, and the documents which are carried by the transporter. So once this order is issued, the officer is bound to carry out this verification within the prescribed time limit, which is 3 days from the time the goods are intervened by the proper officer. So once this verification is done, a report of detention is again prepared by the proper officer, which will have a summary of what are all the discrepancies which he has observed. Or if there is no such discrepancy, you would put it saying that all the documents are found to be in line with movement of goods. So here the important parameter comes is the discrepancies. So what are discrepancies is as such not defined in the law, but given the field level officers involved, there would be multiple layers of discrepancies which we will see in our case study. So if at all there are discrepancies, or if at all there are no discrepancies, as you could see, it would lead to the officer issuing a release order, wherein based on this order, he is bound to release the goods as well, which are detained. So this is a very simple case where there are no discrepancies observed by the officer. So coming to the other case, wherein there are few discrepancies, and then the officer would issue a detention order based on which he has the powers to detain the goods which are in movement. So once this order is issued, the next action which the proper officer shall take is he shall issue a notice saying why proposed demand of tax and penalty should not be levied for these movement of goods. So the taxpayer or the transporter has an option either to agree to those objections if they are as raised by the officer. There exists such flaws in the documents or the movement of goods. So if at all there is an objection which the taxpayer feels he has to write it in person and submit it before the officer, saying that the discrepancies which have been observed are not the case, and the taxpayer can further submit the tax invoices, the LR copies, the delivery challans, as the case may be, and try to see if the matter can be dropped. So assuming that the order, once the objections are raised, the objections would be reviewed by the roving squad officer, and he shall accordingly pass an order. So such order might either confirm the demand which he has raised through this notice, or he shall drop the matter and release the goods which have been detained. So if you could see here the objection. So if at all the notice is issued, and against this notice taxpayer prefers to file an objection, then this is the way proceedings shall take forward. So once this order is issued and the order confirms the demand, the taxpayer has an option to make the payment within 14 days from the date it has been detained by the officer and then release the goods. If he is still very clear and confident that the matter is very genuine and bona fide and it will not mandate any penalty or demand of tax, then he shall take this forward and the officer might again issue a notice for confiscation. And once this, so confiscation is nothing but wherein the goods which are in transit will temporarily get into the control of the officer. So once this notice for confiscation is issued, the taxpayer would be called again by the officer and asked why the goods shall not be confiscated. And that is how the proceedings of confiscation shall proceed. But practically, if we see, since it is during the normal course of operations, a lot of taxpayers tend to avoid this procedure and they try to make the payment of tax and penalty under protest and get the goods cleared temporarily. So here what happens is, against this order, the taxpayer can go and file an appeal against this order and then get the matter resolved at appellate authority level. And even then, if it does not work out, it goes to the next appellate authority, which is appellate tribunal and yet to be formed under GST. So given this background, this is the entire flow of events which a roving squad officer is supposed to follow in case of interception of goods. So moving ahead, now we will take up few case studies. So the first one is in relation to the details which are provided in the e-way bill as against the details as furnished in the tax invoice. So here we have taken an example of bill to ship to model, wherein A and B are independent parties, both are in Maharashtra, and there is a party called as C who is located in Tamil Nadu. So what happens is A shall raise a purchase order with B, and then B shall place a back-to-back order with C and ask him to deliver the goods directly to Mr. A or Mrs. A. So here in bill to ship to model, it is important to understand that there are two transactions involved. One is the invoice issued by C to B, wherein C agrees to supply the goods which B has asked for, but it shall be delivered to the premise of Mrs. A. The second case is the invoice issued by B to A in relation to the purchase order placed by Mrs. A Limited. So here it is now important to understand what are the documents which are to be carried by the transporter and who shall generate the e-way bill. So now in this, it is important to make note that in this e-way bill portal, the taxpayer has an option to select what type of supply it is, whether it's a regular supply or it's a bill to ship to supply or bill from ship from supply. So in this case, it is important that they select the type of supply accordingly. Say in this case, it is a bill to ship to supply. So when the goods are moved by C to the place of A on behalf of B, what happens is in the tax invoice, C will issue it in favor of Mrs. B Limited. Billing address would be B Limited, but the consignee, the person who will receive the goods, would be in favor of Mrs. A Limited. So this is in relation to tax invoice raised by C to B. Now coming to the concept of e-way bill. So if at all e-way bill is also generated by Mrs. C Limited, then the document or details to be furnished on such e-way bills shall be related to the invoice which C has raised in favor of B, which is invoice issued by C to B, wherein goods are moving from C to A. So, coming to the next scenario, wherein this e-way bill for movement of goods from C to A is generated by Mrs. B Limited. So, in such case, what happens is the e-way bill shall have the invoice details of invoice raised by B in favor of A. So, the e-way bill shall have bill from details as Mrs. B Limited, ship from details as Mrs. C Limited. And again, bill to details would be, since the recipient is Mrs. A Limited, it would be bill to Mrs. A Limited and ship to again Mrs. A Limited. So here it is important to ensure that all these bill from, ship from, and bill to, ship to details are answered appropriately or furnished appropriately in the e-way bill platform to avoid any types of litigation or intervention by the roving squad officer. So one more interesting thing to be looked after is supply between Mrs. B to Mrs. C is an interstate supply, and movement of goods from C to A directly is also an interstate supply or interstate movement. Whereas the supply between the Mrs. B Limited and Mrs. A Limited is an intrastate supply. However, the e-way bill provision which will get triggered for this movement of goods would be for an interstate movement, based on which e-way bill provisions have to be satisfied. So by now what I try to mean is the provisions triggered for e-way bill are to be complied as per the central law, which is CGST Act. So we have this consignment value and the limit based on which a given transaction or movement would be subject to e-way bill provision. In case of certain states like Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, and other few more states, wherein the upper limit have been prescribed as 1 lakh only for case of intrastate movement, which is movement within the state. And in case of movement from one state to another, the prescribed limit is 50,000. If at all the consignment value exceeds 50,000, this e-way bill is to be mandated. So in this area, we have also captured two relevant case laws. One is from the Allahabad High Court, which is sleeve code traders. So what had happened here is the supply between the parties. So it was also a bill to ship to model. So wherein one leg of transaction was an interstate supply, but the movement of goods was intrastate movement. As a result, officer had merely looked into the invoice copies carried by the transporter, which had IGST, whereas e-way bill had the element of CGST and SGST. So merely because the change in the GST which has been levied and reported in e-way bill, the officer had taken this matter into the detention provisions and followed the entire process of inspection and detention, which was again dropped by the High Court in this case of sleeve code traders, saying that there was no intent to evade any tax as such by the taxpayer, and hence the matter shall be dropped. So similarly, in the Madras High Court, in the case of MacMate Engineering Limited, so MacMate Engineering is into EPC business. So to explain this particular matter, I would just like to take you through this entire case once. Just a minute. So yeah, we were discussing on this MacMed case. So what happened here is TANGEDCO, Tamil Nadu distribution, electricity distribution public sector entity, had given an order to ITD company for creating a thermal power plant. So both of them are in Tamil Nadu. Now what happened? This ITD had given this entire project on subcontracting to, say, Mr. P, who is in West Bengal. And he also has a place of business in Tamil Nadu. Okay. So it is very simple. TANGEDCO had given a business of thermal project to ITD Limited, and ITD Limited had given this entire project on subcontracting basis to P Limited. So based on the subcontracting assignment given by ITD Limited, P started executing this entire engagement of EPC contract, which is works contract. And for this purpose, they had placed a purchase order with, say, Mr. Phoenix, who is in West Bengal. So, Mr. Phoenix, they asked to supply certain pipes and electrical materials at the site of ITD. So, ITD had their project office at the site which was very close to the thermal project. So, I would like to repeat here, based on the project assigned by ITD to P, P had raised a supply of goods. So P had raised a purchase order to Phoenix to supply these pipes and electrical materials. So these pipes are to be delivered at the project office of ITD Limited. So now here what happened is, this is also a peculiar bill to ship to model, wherein the transaction is between P and Phoenix. However, P had asked to deliver these goods to ITD's premise. So here the bill to parties are these two, and the ship to party is ITD. So what error happened in this entire transaction is, the tax invoice raised by Phoenix had all the particulars correct, which is, say, it is to be billed in favor of P Limited, and then this it is to be shipped to ITD Limited. The error which was occurred by Phoenix was in relation to e-way bill. In this e-way bill, one particular error, which is ship to details, that is the consignee details, instead of mentioning it as ITD, they had mentioned it as Phoenix, sorry, P Limited. And the rowing squad officer, while intervening and verifying the documents which were in movement, had looked that the e-way bill details had the ship to address details or consignee details as well as P Limited and not ITD Limited. And hence they had said that the documents are not in line with movement of goods, and there is no clarity on bill to ship to model as such. Hence we wish to invoke the provisions of 129 and levy the demand and penalty. So now all these details were submitted by the taxpayer immediately upon the show cause notice issued by the rowing squad officer. But the rowing squad officer was not in entertaining the documents submitted and continued with his demand of tax and penalty. So when the matter came before Madras High Court, the same they had upheld, saying that everything was correct except for the error which was done by Phoenix and not by P Limited as well. And hence, this entire matter is to be looked from a bill to ship to model, and it shall be decided accordingly. This way, the matter was remanded back to the jurisdictional officer. So these are the two cases which are in relation to bill to ship to model. So I'll just present my presentation. So yeah, so the case which we discussed was in relation to MacMate Engineering, wherein MacMate Engineering had purchased the materials, and the vendor had wrongly given the ship to details. So these are two rulings in relation to bill to ship to model and how it is to be disclosed and what shall be the consequences. So moving on to the second case study, wherein it is important to understand what does consignment value means. So here we would like to discuss on this facts of the case, wherein Mr. Bala, who is engaged in the business of trading business for taxable products. So here in this case, Mr. Bala is into trading business of taxable products. So on a given day, he was moving goods which had 100 bags. All these 100 bags for two customers, both located in different states compared to the state where Bala was registered under GST. So out of these 100 bags, 90 bags were worth rupees 75,000 and two bags each had a value of up to 50,000. So given this background, let us discuss on what is the consignment value provided under the law, under this rule 138 of e-way bill, and evaluate whether the e-way bill provisions are applicable for all such supplies or only for the supplies of 98 bags. So as we all know, rule 138 prescribes for 50,000 limit as consignment value for transactions which are between interstate supplies. So in this case, all the supplies are for interstate supply. Now let us look at what does consignment value means. So consignment value as such has not been defined under GST Act, but what it means is an invoice value shall be treated as invoice consignment value for the purpose of Rule 138, and accordingly the rules prescribed for e-way bill shall be applicable. So in this case, wherein 98 bags, each having the value of say 75,000 as the invoice value, this would attract the provisions of Rule 138 and e-way bill would be applicable. So in this case, for all these 98 bags, it is important that the transporter carries e-invoice and e-way bill for this movement of 98 bags. Now coming to these two bags, wherein the value is less than 50,000. So whether it would require the provisions of e-way bill also be applicable because there are other 98 bags which are subject to e-way bill provisions? Then the answer is no, because the wordings used are consignment value and these two invoices are less than 50,000, then the taxpayer and transporter is not bound by the provisions of e-way bill for these two bags alone. Okay, so if at all he carries the tax invoice or e-invoice as applicable for his case, then it would suffice the compliance under GST and it does not mandate e-way bill required. So this is about consignment value. Now let us add one more twist to this entire case study, wherein instead of this taxable products, Mr. Bala is engaged in the business of de-oiled cakes. So just for your information, these de-oiled cakes are exempted from GST. So whether in such case, whether this e-way bill provisions would get triggered, whether such bill of supply will be subject to this movement of goods provision or not. So if we carefully go through this Rule 138 provision, it says it is not applicable for the goods which are exempted by way of notification under CGST Act. However, an exception to this is the de-oiled cakes. So even though these de-oiled cakes are exempted by way of notification, Rule 138 says these de-oiled cakes movement would be subject to e-way bill provisions based on the consignment value. So in this case, again, if at all these 98 bags are of de-oiled cakes having worth 75,000, then these 98 bags would be subject to e-way bill provisions, though it is exempted from GST. And the second case of bags wherein the worth of less than 50,000, then the e-way bill provisions will still not be triggered because the consignment value is less than 50,000. So this is about uh, de-oiled cakes. Now let us take a further uh, scenario wherein the transaction is valued at, say, these two bags. The original value of the products are 50,000, but say it is a occasion of, say, Tamil New Year or a Diwali or Republic Day, as the case may be, and a bulk discount has been provided by Mr. Bala, which is, say, 50,000. So the total transaction value is 55,000. The bulk discount given by Mr. Bala based on the given scenario is 50,000, and hence the net discounted value is 5,000. In that case, whether the e-way bill provisions would get triggered or not is the subject matter. Now, here it is important to note that the consignment value, which is to be considered here, would be the value of 5,000 after considering the discount provided by Bala. This is because though the movement in goods is worth 55,000, but the after discount value, which is in accordance with the provisions of Section 15 of GST Act, which talks about the transaction value discount, whether it would be permissible or not. So assuming that it satisfies and the net discounted value is 5,000, then in all such cases, if it is a very bona fide and genuine case, then such transactions or movement of goods will not be subject to the provisions of e-way bill, because the consignment value after discount is lesser than the limit prescribed under the law, which is 50,000. So continuing this, there are two relevant case laws which I feel are apt for these case study. One is Sri Surya Traders. So in this case, as we discussed, the taxpayer had disclosed a value lesser than 50,000 because of the discount given by the purchaser, and hence he had not raised a e-way bill for such movement of goods. So here the officer had held that the contention of department that if the goods are in transit and transaction is less than 50,000, then too the whole transaction are required to be covered by e-way bill. So here they are trying to say that the case where we have seen, though 98 bags are subject to e-way bill provisions, those two bags will not get covered under the e-way bill provisions because the consignment value is less than 50,000. So that has been held by Allahabad High Court in the case of Sri Surya Traders. So a similar ruling of Best Sellers Cochin Private Limited, wherein the discount element was provided and the transaction value was less than 50,000. So the Kerala High Court has held that if at all it is a genuine case and it is in line with the provisions of GST Act, then such transaction value will be treated as the consignment value, and hence the e-way bill provisions would be triggered accordingly. So these are the two cases, one from Allahabad and the other from Kerala High Court. So moving ahead to the case of, so here we have also mentioned what shall consignment value mean. Consignment value is the transaction value plus applicable GST for the given transaction. It is also important to know that if at all the movement includes exempted goods, then such exempted goods, apart from de-oiled cake, shall be eliminated from this consignment value. I repeat, consignment value shall not include exempted goods except for de-oiled cakes. So now moving on to the next case study, which is movement of goods by a works contractor. So here we have given a case wherein Mr. Ajay is engaged in the business of works contract, who is registered in Pune. So he has got an assignment or an engagement which is for a site located in Mumbai. So for this purpose, Mr. Ajay requires movement of portable crane from Pune to Mumbai, which is worth 1,50,000. So here, for the benefit of everyone, the type of engagement is a works contract, and these works contract are covered under the SAC code of 9954, which is the service accounting code 9954. So this works contract gets covered under the definition of composite supply. Composite supply, as given under the law, the definition says that when two or more taxable supplies are rendered and they are naturally bundled and supplied in conjunction with each other, then it shall be treated as composite supply, and the rate of tax would be the predominant supply, which is the main supply of such works contract, shall be the rate of tax for the entire supply. So in this case, 9954, which is the principal supply for works contract, shall be the principal accounting classification and also the rate of tax. Given this background, Mr. Ajay is in the process of moving his portable crane from Pune to Mumbai, which is worth 1,50,000. Now, it is important to understand whether e-way bill is required for such movement of goods, because there is no underlying supply of goods. To say, Mr. Ajay is not into the business of supplying portable cranes to his customer. So whether there is a need for e-way bill, the answer is yes, e-way bill is applicable for movement of goods and not for supply of goods. I repeat, any movement of goods as prescribed under Rule 138, any movement of goods wherein the consignment value is more than 50,000 in case of interstate supply, it shall attract the provisions of e-way bill, and the person who is making such movement of goods is bound to generate e-way bill. So in this case, Mr. Ajay is moving portable crane, which is worth 1,50,000, which is also more than 50,000, and hence Mr. Ajay is bound to generate e-way bill for such movement of goods. Now, taking the next scenario, assuming that the disclosed value is worth 75,000 on the e-way bill. So whether in such case this e-way bill provision, so assuming the document which is being used for such movement is delivery challan, and on the delivery challan Mr. Ajay has disclosed it as, say, worth 75,000 of this portable crane. So whether this 75,000 movement of goods, which is a portable crane, from Pune to Mumbai would be subject to the provisions of e-way bill is the question. So it is important to note that this movement is within the state of Maharashtra. And for the state of Maharashtra, the prescribed upper limit is 1 lakh instead of 50,000, which has been prescribed under Rule 138. So since the limit is 1 lakh and the value of goods which is in movement is worth 75,000 only, because of not satisfying the consignment value of 1 lakh provided under Maharashtra state GST law, Mr. Ajay is exempted from the provisions of e-way bill and he can move the goods purely based on delivery channel. So now coming to the matter, assuming it is subject to e-way bill, then what shall be the classification, HSN classification or SAC classification, which shall be reported on the e-way bill and the e-way bill portal by Mr. Ajay. So here, since it is a composite supply, and as I mentioned, the principal supply is the works contract service, which is covered under 9954. The transaction would be subject to 9954 and 18% rate of tax by Mr. Ajay. However, when we log into the e-way bill portal, it will not permit the person who is generating e-way bill to provide a SAC code and affect the movement of goods. So as a result, what taxpayer or the transporter can do is he can provide the HSN code of the portable crane under the classification tab as mentioned in the e-way bill and give a description that this movement is in relation to work contract, which is subject to SAC code of 9954 and hence affecting the movement of goods. So once these particulars are provided on the e-way bill, then even the officer who intervenes the movement of goods will be in a position to appreciate the fact that there is no underlying supply, it is only movement of goods for the purpose of works contract. So this is what a taxpayer or transporter can disclose in the e-way bill. Now the last question in this transaction is, assuming Ajay is into trading of portable cranes business and he has misdeclared a HSN classification to enjoy reduced tax rate in invoice and e-way bill. So assuming this portable crane, which is taxable under HSN code say 84, and assuming that this product is subject to 28% of GST. So then instead of disclosing this under chapter 84, what Ajay does is he discloses this under say chapter 71 or any other chapter wherein the rate of GST applicable is say 18% instead of 28%. So then whether in such cases due to such misdeclaration Ajay is enjoying the reduced tax rate benefit, which is 18% instead of correct levy of 28%. So in such cases, e-way bill also containing the details as provided in tax invoice. Whether the roving squad officer has the power to detain such goods which are in movement or not is the point of dispute. So for all these factual matters, now we have a suitable case laws which would try to fit in all the answers. Yes. So here the relevant case law which would suit the given case study is one in the case of Srimali Industries Limited, wherein the Rajasthan High Court had looked into the particular matter and concluded that the classification misdeclaration done by a person in this given transaction was held to be a fraudulent and hence it is subject to detention by the roving squad officer. Now just taking another case of Kerala High Court in the case of Hindustan Coca-Cola Private Limited, wherein the same issue was raised, but a different view was given by the High Court saying that goods cannot be detained by the roving squad officer merely because of classification issue. Rather, what the roving squad officer can do is they can intercept the vehicle, do the necessary homework, ensure all the paperwork is done to demonstrate that taxpayer is moving goods with a reduced tax rate and incorrect classification and transfer all those paperwork to the jurisdictional officer of such taxpayer for further actions in this regard. However, the roving squad officer shall not have the powers to detain such goods when they are in movement, just because there is a classification issue. So these are the two rulings which are contradictory, and subsequently there have been multiple state government circulars which defines the powers of the roving squad officer and also says that their powers are limited to movement of goods, and whatever is in relation to mistakes apparent on record, it shall consider a reduced penalty, uh, and so on and so forth. So given all those circulars and backgrounds, it comes out clearly that a roving squad officer shall not have the powers to determine a matter on classification issue, and hence they shall not detain the goods which are in movement on such parameters. So this is about case study 3. So now moving on to this case study 4. So this is in relation to movement of goods for job work. So here we have a principal and a job worker. Principal is located in the state of Tamil Nadu. He is a registered principal. We have a job worker who is in the state of Karnataka. So inputs are sent by principal to the job worker, which are worth 1.5 lakh rupees. So for this movement, since it is a job work, let us first understand what are all the documents required as per the job work provisions in order to move the goods to the premise of job worker. So the section 143 of the CGST Act and the relevant rules prescribed thereunder, read with the circulars issued then and there by the CBIC, says that movement of goods in case of job work shall be done based on the delivery challan issued by the principal in favor of job worker. So as per job work provisions, the base document shall be the delivery challan. Now let us try to understand whether these movement between principal to job work will attract the provisions of e-way bills. So as we discussed, e-way bills are triggered when a consignment value is more than the prescribed limit, 50,000 or 1 lakh as the case may be. And there is a particular exception provided under Rule 138 which says in case of movement between principal and job worker, even though the consignment value is 50,000 or 1 lakh, the e-way bill provision shall get triggered. So with this background, let us see how to answer the particular case study. Now the goods are returned by the job worker to the principal's place of business, and while returning a document which is job worker's invoice saying he has done a processing on such inputs provided by the principal, which is worth 35,000. So job workers service are worth 35,000. So the documents which are carried while returning these goods back to principal are job workers invoice, which is worth 35,000, delivery challan, which is the original delivery challan issued by the principal to the job worker, and an e-way bill for this movement of goods from job worker to principal. These are all the documents which are required for movement of e-way bill. So let us talk about who shall generate e-way bill in all the two movements. So in this case, when goods are moved from principal to the job worker, so since the principal is registered, he shall generate an e-way bill for such movement of goods. Now, assuming for a minute this job worker is also registered, then in such case, even job worker has the option to generate an e-way bill. if at all he causes for the movement of goods from principal to his place of business. Similarly, while returning the goods, job worker, since he is registered, he can also issue an e-way bill for such movement of goods, or principal can generate an e-way bill for goods from while returning the goods from the job worker to his place of business. So this is about who shall generate e-way bill, for which the thumb rule is the person who causes the movement shall generate an e-way bill. And Rule 138 also additionally provides, if at all that person who causes the movement wishes to assign, it can assign the transporter to generate e-way bill as well. So this is about who shall generate e-way bill. So now let us discuss on what are all the necessary information to be disclosed in the e-way bill accordingly. So while goods are sent to the job worker, the underlying document is delivery challan based on which e-way bill is generated. So the e-way bill shall contain all the details as prescribed under the delivery challan, which shall be disclosed or furnished under e-way bill as well. Now let us discuss when the goods are returned by the job worker to principal. Here the underlying documents are two documents. One is the job worker's invoice, which is worth 35,000 for the job work process carried out by the job worker. And it has the SAC code of 9988, which prescribes for uh, job work activities carried on goods belonging to another registered person. So job work invoice worth 35,000. Second is the original delivery challan, which has all the HSN details of the goods which are in movement and the value of such goods. So now the question is, e-way bill shall contain the details of job work invoice or delivery challan. So just for the benefit of everyone, as we discussed, e-way bill portal will not entertain any SAC code under the HSN classification tab. So now the person who generates e-way bill is left with no other choice but to generate e-way bill with HSN code of those products. So this is about what HSN classification shall be reported under e-way bill. Now let us discuss on what value shall be reported in the e-way bill. So the job worker's invoice is worth 35,000 because the process carried out by job worker is worth 35,000 only. So here the person who generates e-way bill can generate with a value of 35,000 and give it in its description saying that the value prescribed is based on the process carried out by the job worker and the services are covered under 9988. However, the HSN mentioned in the classification is purely only for the purpose of e-way bill for movement of goods. So this is one way. The other way is the person can also disclose saying that the value of the goods is say 1,50,000. Since he wants to match with the delivery challan, he can disclose it as 1,50,000 and generate the e-way bill. So here the person generating e-way bill has an option to either do it with the value of job work invoice or to match with the delivery challan, as the case may be. And it's at the liberty of the taxpayer or the person who is generating the e-way bill. So this is about what documents and how it shall be generated. Now let us further understand what if a further supply is made from the job worker's premise. So what are all the parameters to be looked forward in this case if job worker is registered or not? If he is registered, well and fine. If he is not registered, it is important that his place, the job worker's place of business, is included as an additional place of business in the principal's GST registration. Now, in this case, assuming that the job worker is not registered, then in that case, and also give for a matter of fact that principal is only existing in the state of Tamil Nadu, then it would not be possible for the principal to directly do supply from the place of job worker, because principal is not existing in the state of Karnataka, which will restrict him to add an additional place of business, because job worker is also unregistered. So he can only do it only if the job worker is registered, or principal is already existing in Karnataka and he has an additional place, disclosed the place of job worker as an additional place of business. Only in such cases he would be permitted to do further supply from the place of job workers directly. Now let us further discuss what if the goods are returned or classified. So what if the goods returned after the job work is carried out, and the resulting product is altogether covered under a new HSN code? So in that case, a new element comes in, wherein the goods which are in movement will be subject to a HSN classification, a new HSN classification compared to the HSN classification provided in delivery challan, because the processing activity carried out by the job worker as such gives out a new product. So here there is another deliberation to be done, wherein HSM classification to be reported under e-way bill has to be in line with the delivery challan, or has to be in line with the goods which are in movement, which is subject to, or which is as per the new HSN classification. So if at all the person who is making the movement prefers to give the new HSN classification, then there are possibilities wherein the officer will question the HSN classification when compared with delivery challan. Or if he tries to match with delivery challan, then the officer will tend to question how this would get covered under this HSN classification. So in both the scenarios, it is highly prone that a roving squad officer shall intervene the movement of goods and raise the question on classification and try to detain the goods which are in transit. So these are the various cases which we would like to evaluate under job work, and the relevant case laws in this regard are: first one, again in the Kerala High Court, wherein Muhammad Kunju and brothers case, it has been held that as long as there could be no doubt with regard to the identity of the goods that are being transported, and the difference in the value shown in e-way bill from that shown in the original delivery challan was only on account of requirement of maintaining uniformity in the value shown in the tax invoice raised by the job worker and e-way bill generated by him, I am of the view that detention in this case was wholly unjustified. So in this Muhammad Kunju and brothers case as well, the dispute was about the value reported in e-way bill as compared to the value furnished in the delivery challan. So all the other parameters were same as compared to delivery challan and e-way bill except for the value, and the High Court had upheld that it is the case of principal and job worker, and such difference in value is because of the uniformity to maintain with the job work invoice value, and hence it is not right to detain the goods on this parameter. So the goods detained were released based on the High Court's order. Second is the case of Jaitran Communication Private Limited, again the Allahabad High Court ruling. Here, e-way bill of the vehicle did not contain the correct description about the movement of goods. So on going through the orders passed, it would clearly show that the transaction is in relation to transportation of machinery for performance of job work, which has not been examined by the roving squad officer. So the Allahabad High Court said that uh, though there is a discrepancy in the description provided in e-way bill as compared to the delivery challan, it is important for the roving squad officer to understand that the given supply or the given movement is forming part of a job work contract, and it is purely movement of goods and not a supply per se. As a result, they have remanded back the case to the jurisdictional officer, and the matter would be looked at it afresh, and it would be dealt accordingly. So these are the case studies and case laws which I thought are relevant to be discussed in this forum. I hope I have done justice to all the cases which I have taken. Now it is open to the forum for any discussion or practical challenges which they face.
Thank you, Vardhaman sir, for a wonderful session.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, you've taken through the practical issues and the solutions to it. It was very interesting and too useful, and it will surely help the attendees to take care in the compliance.
Mhm.
So yeah, so we'll move to the question answer session.
Ah,
The questions already uh, they have given, and I think one of the question is will cover everything. I think so. They have
mhm.
one of them. Mr. Sumit has asked that way to avoid litigation on e-waybill issues. So I think this will cover the overall subject itself. Ki what will be the bullet point that causes the litigation and how we can avoid that. So I think the other things
Yes, sir.
bulletly we can, yeah, briefly or bullet point you can.
So, how to avoid litigation in relation to e-way bill is the question, right, sir?
Yes.
So now, since we have gone through the technical matters and practical matters, how the each case will have HSN classification or valuation difference, as the case may be. One important point which I would like to draw here is in all these e-way bills case, at least based on my experience, uh, with all due respect to the rowing squad officers, what I have seen is they never give a chance to the transporter or the taxpayer who is listening with the rowing squad officer to think even for a minute. So if at all they find a discrepancy, they immediately come up with a notice or a detention order or as the case may be, and they try to detain the goods. So to avoid all such things, it is important to have one a transporter who is well aware of all these transactions which the taxpayer is engaging into. And number two is the respective finance team also ensuring that all the documents which are appropriate for the given supply are generated and handed over to the transporter. So that even if the transporter is unable to convey things by looking at, say, if it's a bill to ship to model, by looking at e-way bill, the officer will be able to understand that, okay, it's a bill to ship to model. So the consignee, which is the recipient, and the billing to whom it has been billed will not be the same, one and the same, and it will not lead to next level of discussion for the discrepancies which you would have observed. So my humble opinion is have a transport agent who is aware of all the transactions which we are entering into, and have a finance team who is well equipped with the type of supply it is, and appropriate disclosure is made in the e-way bill and tax invoice or e-invoice as the documents are required.
Okay, great, sir. So I think this will surely help in avoiding
Mhm.
litigation. Litigation is bound to come, but we have to be prepared that how we can, but we can minimize. As sir suggested, the steps that if we follow, we ensure the e-way bill is correct as per invoice, or we ensure that HSN is as per invoice. So few checks and that will help to avoid the litigation. So any further query that tax attendees want to ask, they can raise your hand. We will unmute and you can raise your query, or you can put it in chat box. That questions we can take up.
I could see one Mr. Manoj Kumar who has raised hands.
Manoj Kumar, okay. Okay, Manoj Kumar sir, we have unmute yourself. We have allowed you to unmute yourself. Manoj Kumar sir, you can speak now.
Yeah, thanks for giving me an opportunity to discuss. I have one question regarding work contract, the wherein the materials need to be moved to a specific work location on a need basis of the requirement of material, and billing need to be done on a milestone basis. In this scenario, what is your suggestion or recommendation? How to prepare the documentation, and how the e-way bill should carry a list of documentation to avoid future litigation.
Okay, so this covers in our one of the case study. So I would just express this even more deeply. So in works contract, as we discussed, the uh, it would get covered mostly under a composite supply, and the predominant supply would be the nature of service, which would be under the classification of 9954. So here what happens is, as you said, there would not be underlying supply for such movement of goods, but for such movement of goods, what a registered taxpayer who causes the movement can do is, he can generate a delivery challan wherein he can give the destination details in the e-way bill. I mean, in the delivery challan, describing the destination details, describing the nature of asset or goods being moved to such site, and the same can be replicated in e-way bill. So the challenge here is, in e-way bill, it will not accept any service accounting code. As a result, what will happen? Uh, the taxpayer who is affecting the movement is forced to give the HSN code for a given product. So say in our case, if it's a, as I said, it's a portable crane, then the portable crane which is coming under chapter 84, that HSN code will have to be given in the e-way bill. And in description, what the taxpayer or the person who is causing the movement can give is, he can prescribe the reason for such movement and say that the original supply is the works contract, which is covered under this classification. And more importantly, while generating this e-way bill, the person who generates has an option to select the type of movement, wherein he also has the option to select movement is in a case of job work or whatever is the scenario. If the works contract is not specified, they can select the others category and give this description, so that officer upfront, before looking into this case, is aware that this is purely a movement and this is not a supply. So this way, backed up with delivery challan, all the necessary information, correct classification, what type of goods it is, all these details which match with the delivery challan, which will help the transporter or the taxpayer to move the goods flawlessly, even if the roving squad officer intervenes the movement. Sir, I hope I have answered your question.
Yeah, thanks for the clarification.
Yeah, thank you.
Any further queries? Uh,
I don't see any other hands, sir. I don't
Yeah.
know if you can see.
One Manish sir has raised his hand. 1 second. Let's participate. Manish sir, now you can unmute yourself. I have allowed you to do that. Manish sir,
Or
are
if
you?
you or if you are unable to speak, then you can even drop the question on chat box.
Manish sir, are you able to speak? I think you are in mute. No, you have to unmute yourself, sir.
Okay. Yeah. Hello.
Hello?
Yeah. Hello. Is it audible, sir?
Yeah, you are audible, sir.
Hello. Is it audible?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
My
audible,
question
sir.
is, sir, what are the? My question is, what are the goods for which there is no EWB is required while sending for job work or for any tax invoice?
So this rule 138 clearly prescribes all such scenario. So it starts with uh, transactions which are covered under Schedule 3. So Schedule 3, just to give a background, particular transactions or activities will neither be treated as supply of goods nor as supply of services. Similarly, the second point would be uh, exempted products. As I said, apart from de-oiled cakes, movement of exempted products will not be covered under e-way bill provisions. Similarly, other points as well have been described. Just a minute, sir. I'll just read it out for benefit of everyone. So it has also provided an annexure which says that in case of the LPG or petrol or all such cases, the goods which are not under the levy of GST shall also not be bound by the provisions of e-way bill, and so on and so forth. Do you have any specific product to be known or answered, sir? Because the list is pretty huge.
No, some valuable goods, sir. Valuable goods like
So in
gold,
case of
silver,
jewelry,
diamonds,
so
jewelry,
in case of jewelry,
which you are
golds
sending for
and
job work.
silvers means.
Yeah, hello.
So
Yeah,
you
sir.
are audible, sir.
For sending the valuable goods through invoice and through
Ah.
delivery seller, is there necessary to generate EWB?
So in case of jewelry industry, it says only in case
Yeah.
of imitation jewelry, uh, you are bound to have the e-way bill provisions.
Okay. Because while we have
So
sent some
apart,
goods for job work few days back.
Hmm, hmm.
Yeah, tell me, sir. Yeah, tell me,
Yeah.
sir.
So there is one more point in job work wherein it says in case of job work you don't have to look at the consignment value even if it is for 10 rupees. If the goods are moving from job worker to principal or principal to job worker, it would be subject to the provisions of e-way bill. But the larger point to be looked at is such e-way bill rules itself provide certain transactions or products which shall never be covered under e-way bill provisions. So as a result, even though you send your goods on a job work basis, if such goods are particularly kept out of e-way bill provisions, then it shall not be subject to e-way bill provisions.
No, whether it is covered under e-invoice also, sir, delivery challan.
Delivery challan and e-invoice. Sorry, sir. E-invoice is altogether a different
No,
point, sir.
no. But some of the checking GST officer, they have demanded that how should I believe that the goods are sent for the job work? Because there is no e-invoice, no e-way bill. They are demanding and they are seizing the goods. That's why I'm asking.
So there the problem is the officer is also not ready to accept what we submit, and in that case we have to be little humble enough and try to explain things why it is not subject to e-way bill, because we can see there are a lot of officers which will also not like if we directly tell what the provision says. So it is important for us to understand the circumstance and respond in a very humble manner and tell them why we are not subject to the provisions of e-way bill. So as I said, this jewelry industry, apart from imitation jewelry, is not required to generate e-way bill, even if such jewelry are sent for job work to the job worker.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
I think the query has been solved. Of Pratik Patel sir is the another one who want to ask the question.
Okay.
Yes, Pratik sir, now you can ask your question. Hello, can you speak, sir?
Hello.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Sir, can I speak in Hindi?
Yeah, you can, sir.
Okay. मेरा एक कंस्ट्रक्शन कंपनी का काम कर रहा हूँ मैं, जिनका रजिस्ट्रेशन गुजरात में है, और हमारी जो साइट्स चल रही है वो चल रही है बंगाल, हैदराबाद, यूपी, और हमारा जो मटेरियल मूवमेंट का जो हमने मॉड्यूल रखा है वो बिल टू शिप टू है, मतलब हमारा जो भी मटेरियल खरीदा वो खरीदी करते हैं वो सब बिल टू गुजरात रहता है और शिप टू यूपी, बंगाल जैसे कंसर्न स्टेट में रहता है। तो ये सिनेरियो में जब हमारा कॉन्ट्रैक्ट खत्म होगा और हम जब हम और मीनवाइल हम लोग इनवॉइस रेट से आ रहे इनवॉइस मतलब में रनिंग करते हैं। तो मुझे अभी जैसे मनीष जी ने अपना मनीष जी से आगे जिन्होंने पूछा था कि उसका ईवे बिल बनाना पड़ेगा कि क्या, मतलब पूरा मोमेंट ही हमारा सभी जो भी गुड्स और वो सब कुछ है वो सब कुछ सप्लाई होता है साइट एड्रेस पे, और फिर हम उनका सर्विस बिल रेज करते हैं 9954 में। तो आफ्टर कंप्लीशन ऑफ वर्क तो उसका ईवे बिल बनाना पड़ेगा।
100%, sir. Now there are few exemptions. say trucks है या जो आके transportation के business में हो, for them government had introduced an exemption कि you don't have to, in case of goods, मतलब in case of transportation passenger या transfer of empty trucks, उन सब cases में they have told that the exemption is given and you don't have to generate e-way bill. But if our situation, अपना situation उसमें cover नहीं होता है, so then we will have to raise a delivery challan based on which movement of goods have to be covered and reported under e-way bill, sir.
But sir, मेरा क्वेश्चन ऐसा है कि मूवमेंट ऑफ गुड्स आर ऑलरेडी डन वंस।
That's okay.
जो बिल टू शिप टू मॉडल से हमने काम किया था, बिल टू गुजरात और शिप टू बंगाल, तो मूवमेंट ऑफ गुड्स जैसे सीमेंट्स हो गया, स्टील हो गया, सैंड हो गया, वो तो ऑलरेडी वहां पे शिप तो हो ही गया है। तो मतलब क्वेश्चन मेरा है कि एक ही मूवमेंट का दो बार ई-वे बिल मैंडेटरी?
Sir, this is to, so movement supply would be only one, sir. We should appreciate that supply is different and movement is different, right? So our supply will get over once the ultimate क्या बोलते हैं, whatever has been agreed on the works contract has been delivered to our customer. तो वो deliver होने के बाद we have to get back our vehicles or our machineries, as the case may be, right? So
I'm not talking about machineries and everything. See, machinery and there for our apparatus and everything. For there was a कोई सर्कुलर है कि जिससे
correct.
अपने जो गुड्स है कि अपना जो हमारे जो भी काम करने के जो मशीन है फिर उसके जो वेपन्स है मतलब जो साधन है वो मूवमेंट कर सकते हैं वो दैट आई नो बट मेरा कंसर्न सर क्वेश्चन क्या था कि अभी मुझे एक कंपनी बनाने का कॉन्ट्रैक्ट मिला है कुछ कंपनी मुझे खड़ी करनी है तो मैं जो भी मटेरियल उसका है सीमेंट स्टील सैंड जो भी मतलब मैं जो उसमें जो भी लगने वाला है वो सब बिल टू शिप टू मॉडल पे काम कर रहा हूँ मेरा पूरा मूवमेंट साइट एड्रेस पे ही जाता है सिर्फ मेरे गुजरात ऑफिस पे सिर्फ इनवॉइस आता है भी ये वहां पे डिलीवर्ड हो गया और उसको इनवॉइस आ गया फिर बाद में मैं जैसे मेरा कॉन्ट्रैक्ट खत्म हुआ तो मैं यहाँ से एक इनवॉइस रेज करता हूँ जो मेरा होता है सर्विस इनवॉइस 9954 में तो मेरा मैंने सब जो मटेरियल मूवमेंट किया वहां पे जो सीमेंट या रेती होगी कच्ची हो गई फिर हो गया वो सब जो हो गया तो उसका मुझे वापिस मतलब मैं जैसे अभी जैसे मैंने पूरा बिल्डिंग खड़ा कर दिया तो वो बिल्डिंग का मतलब उस टाइम के मुझे कोई ई-वे बिल या कुछ देना नहीं पड़ेगा ना
नहीं सो यू इफ आई एम राइट आपका सवाल ये है कि जो भी मटेरियल्स एक्सेस में पड़े हैं वहां पे साइट में आफ्टर कंस्ट्रक्शन उसके मूवमेंट के लिए मुझे ई-वे बिल बनाना है कि नहीं करेक्ट
नहीं यू डिडंट गेट दैट सर मैं फर्स्ट से रिपीट करता हूँ हमारा गुजरात में रजिस्ट्रेशन है
Pratik sir, I think I have understood. Vardhaman sir, he want to ask that for whatever material movement happened, like sand, steel, cement, that they have generated e-way bill for that. And lastly, when they are raising an invoice for service, for their service, for that e-way bill is required or not? Only for the service invoice which they have raised.
No, for service invoice there won't be any e-way bill.
Is no required for e-way bill.
No need at all, sir. Only when there is movement of goods. Service mein there is no movement of goods, na?
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay, so I think, sir, we can keep on talking because the subject is such that everyone will have the query. So since we have crossed our timeline, so we can conclude, I think. Okay, so whoever is having the query, they can send to Vardhaman sir over the email ID kvc&associates@gmail.com, and contact number is also given. You can reach out to sir. Sir will answer those queries, or you can mail it to taxupdate.otu@gmail.com so that we will forward to sir also.
Yeah.
Okay, so if I think we can now because it is 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So thanks everyone for patiently listening.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks everyone for participating early morning and showing so much of interest, asking questions, and keeping the session as interactive. Thank you all attendees. Thank you, Vardhaman sir, especially. You have taken your time and shared your practical experience with us and have shared the knowledge.
Thank you, sir.
So thank you all. We will meet in another session very soon. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.